Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about the problem with headphone reviewers. And yes, I am now back at my house because, my college semester is over. Thank God. But yeah, I'm going to be going back in about a month. So just be prepared for that. But I want to talk about mainly two reviewers, and I do want to kind of call them out, but don't go harass them. I'm just mainly calling them out just to give an example of what I kind of don't like in these recent videos of the DT 1990 Mark II videos, to be exact. And those were the videos from Joshua Valor and DMS on the Headphone Show. First of all, I want to talk about Joshua Valor because I think his review is like a little less scathing, and I have less problems with it. Now, first of all, I feel like it's kind of weird. I don't feel it's bad to change your opinion. It's fine to change your opinion. I'm not saying it's bad to do that. And I'm not saying you can't do that. But what I am kind of confused about is why he really praised the DT 1990, the original. Now, I do not have that headphone, but I am actually maybe planning on getting it because I'm also talking about this in the first place because I'm planning on probably getting a headphone that is sort of similar in tuning to the 560S that has like decently neutral tuning, but also just has more spacious soundstage and better details, like better detail retrieval. I don't know. I just want like an upgrade to this, basically. I know I need to keep buying like upgrades and all that, but again, I want a little bit of a better headphone, and I'll just stop there. I'm not going to spend, at least I'm setting like a reasonable budget. I'm not spending like more than $500. I'll say that. But I will say that again, Joshua Valor praised the hell out of the DT 9090 when it was released, like the original 1990 Pro, and then now he says in 2024 it's not worth it, which I think is a little bit of a fair assessment, but he kind of straight up says it's not a good, he more says it's not a good headphone, less than it's just not a good value, which I think makes more sense to me because he points out there are alternatives now, which is true. Like there are a lot of Headphone headphones that now fill that price bracket. There are a lot more companies getting into open backs, and I think that's worth diving into. But again, he kind of just treats it as if it's now just a bad headphone in general, as if he didn't praise it in the past, which is a little weird for me. And there are a lot of people in the comments that also just completely disagreed with him and said that, the headphone is really, really detailed. And while it does have that ginormous 8K. Yes, I do know they have that really ginormous 8K spike with the treble. You can EQ that down, and I don't find that to be an issue really because I EQ my headphones. I have to because I think like almost every headphone I wear is a bass cannon because my ears are just sensitive to that, and it's fine if you EQ something. What I do think is not fine is when you say, oh, in order for this headphone to be good, you have to EQ it. I think that's stupid because if you have to EQ like almost everything in order for a headphone to be like, decently good, like what's the point then? What's the point of buying that headphone rather than like a headphone that's already tuned pretty well that you just have to EQ like one frequency range to maybe fit you a little bit better, and that's it. If you have to EQ an entire headphone for it to sound good, that's not worth it in my eyes. Even if it's like pretty cheap, I still think you can do better. But I'm kind of going on the side tangent. But as I said, again, he praised the hell out of the DT 9090, and then now he's basically just kind of treating it as if it's not a good headphone anymore. And with his 1990 Mark II video, he basically said that it's a lot better than the well, not a lot better, but it is better than the DT90 Pro, which I think makes a little bit of sense. But at the same time, there's conflicting like evidence, or not evidence, but conflicting opinions on the treble, because Joshua Valor said that the treble was a little bit reduced on the DT 9090 Mark II, and yet DMS on the Headphone Show said that it wasn't changed at all, and it still is super fucking bright. And I think that is a problem. I think they do need to really tone down that treble peak because it is too much. Like, I understand that a lot of people like it, but for like probably 90% of people, especially people that are definitely like sensitive to high end, it's really bad. Like, and it is like in that kind of range where it kind of gets sibilant and really, really harsh. So yeah, I do think that's a fair criticism to say that needs to be toned down. But again, it's just conflicting opinions of, oh, this again, this one reviewer says, "Hey, it's toned down a decent amount. It actually sounds a little better now." And then DMS going on and saying that it hasn't changed. It still sounds really similar to the original in 1990. And then again, this other reviewer is saying that it's kind of the opposite. It actually changes a lot. Like, I don't know. It's just kind of weird that two reviewers just completely say almost the complete opposite, and yet still kind of hold the same opinion that the DT 1990 is not like relevant or not even like good anymore, just as a headphone when they praised it back when it came out. I saw DMS's review of the 1990 Pro as well, and he said that was probably one of his favorite headphones when it came out. But again, he just kind of treats it as if it's crap now, which I think is kind of ridiculous. Like, again, I know there's more headphones now. I'm not saying that there's less alternatives and there's probably a better value than the DT9090 now, but again, treat the DT9090 like a really, really solid headphone from what I've seen that has really good detail, and a lot of studio producers still use it. And keep in mind, it is a studio headphone, like, first and foremost. And I do understand that, there's no excuse for it being bright. I mean, even if it is bright, there's no excuse in saying, "Oh, it's for studio." Yeah, but it's still too much. Like, I understand that, but again, you still have to be at least a little considerate to the fact that it is not really meant to be a music headphone first. It's mainly meant to be a studio mixing headphone that's used to really point out details. And even though it's a little bit too hot in the detail, in the high end and the details at points, it's still like, at least being decently honest, even if it is kind of coloring the treble. But again, these reviewers treat it as if, again, it's just complete garbage now, and there's a lot of better headphones. And I do agree, yes, there are probably some better headphones out there that are maybe even cheaper than the DT9090. From what I've seen, like, for example, the FIO FT1 Pro, which is a very, very recent headphone that's not even being shipped out to most people yet. I've heard that is a very good headphone and can even rival like the Ananda Nano and all that. But again, even then, like, the DT9090, I've seen a lot of people still rock it and still swear by it because it is kind of a tank in terms of the build, except for maybe the headband. But even then, you can replace it. Like, there are replacement parts online. You could just contact Beyerdynamic, which I greatly appreciate, because I think a big problem with a lot of headphones, but especially with like Hyphaman and Focal or Focal, is QC. But especially with Hyphaman, because Hyphaman is fucking terrible QC. I don't care what anybody says. I know it's kind of the minority that like speak about the QC issues, but I also have had a QC issue with my Sundaras, and I paid $300 for that damn thing, and I'm not even using it anymore because it has a channel imbalance issue. So again, I feel very hesitant to buy a Sundara or any other Hyphaman product now, and that's why I'm also maybe leaning towards maybe the FT1 Pro, because I've heard that is very similar in tuning to the Ananda Nano, and it's almost as good from what I've heard, or the DT9090, or a lot of headphones just in that general like $200 to $400 to $500 price bracket. Like, I am just basically searching for a new headphone under that. If you want to give me some recommendations, I am very open to that. But as I said, again, those are the issues I basically just have with their recent reviews. Just basically, just kind of devaluing and just kind of basically just kind of ragging on the DT9090, but also kind of with shills as well. And I do feel like some of them just kind of praise the 490 Pro, which is kind of weird to me because they said in their original reviews, as well as like DMS especially, he kind of said, like, it's not really worth it. And I do kind of agree with that because I have the original 560Ss right here, or not the original, but, the 560Ss, these are good. These are really cheap. These are like 180, 190, and they're pretty good sounding, and they're very neutral. They don't have that much soundstage, which is, again, why I'm searching for a new headphone which has a little better soundstage and just better, like, these are really, really good imagers as well, but again, also just better, what do you call it? Just better details. But again, like, I feel like a lot of reviewers, instead of, pointing out like some other alternatives, they go back to the 490 Pro and act like, that's like a way better headphone than the 1990. But in their original review, again, it's kind of contradicting itself because they said it's not really that much of an improvement for the already pretty good 560S, and it's a lot more expensive, and it is. It's like $350 for just a headphone that's pretty similar in tuning to the 560S that doesn't really seem to improve on much besides comfort. At least from what I've seen. I know I'm just judging based on reviews, and I advise not to do that. Just saying, oh, this is now my opinion, even though I don't even have the headphones. And I do disagree with that sentiment. I know I'm being a hypocrite myself, but again, from a lot of people and from a lot of reviews, I've seen just the 490 Pro just basically being announced, or not announced, but basically just the general consensus being like, it's like it's good, but like it's a decent amount, especially when the HD 600 and the 560S already exist, and a lot of other alternatives. There's not really a huge point for the 490 besides comfort. And again, that's what a lot of reviewers said. Again, until this 1990 Pro Mark II video, where they, instead of recommending other alternatives, they go back to the 490 and act like that is like a much better headphone. When again, in their original review, they didn't really praise it that much and said it wasn't that great. So again, I just don't really understand why they contradict so much. And like, I don't know, man. I feel like it's really ridiculous to be also loyal to a brand. I understand that a lot of reviewers do say that, when they get sponsored, they say, oh, it doesn't affect my review at all. But I kind of doubt it. On like, there has to be at least one or two reviews that I've watched that, probably have been influenced by the money that they get from affiliates or sponsorships. So yeah, I do kind of doubt that statement a little bit, but not for all reviewers. Like, again, just like maybe like some outliers. But besides that, those are just the few problems that I have with the most recent reviews of the DT1990 Mark IIs. Again, I know I do not even have the headphones. I'm just kind of judging it based on general consensus of what a lot of other people have said. But even then, again, it's just kind of weird how they kind of contradict themselves like kind of multiple times. But yeah, that is basically it, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.